Hello, people. It is I. I return to you now at the turning of the tide. I just want to do another video on the chap I've been following reasonably closely, a man called David Lammy. David Lammy I first came across after the Grenfell fire tower disaster, where he was very emotional afterwards, made some very heartwarming speeches about a certain artist lady who he knew who died in the blaze, and how it was a Dickens-like portrayal of the have and have-nots, the two-class society that we have in England. About poor people have to live in squalor-y high-rise flats and get burnt to death, while rich folk, literally around the corner, have £1 million townhouses that obviously don't stack people one on top of the other. So David Lammy obviously won me over with that, and he seemed like a very interesting chap. And he got my eye, and I did a little bit more. You know, he's popped up here and there over time. More recently, he popped up in relation to. Well, this is the comment technically that he did, and also another thing where he criticised Tina Daheley, who's in another one. She's the host of one of the other videos I did, which was about the UK Supreme Court. So if you look at my video for the UK Supreme Court, she's the host of that. And Tina Daheley's gone on to do other things within the BBC, and more recently, I think it was either with Comic Relief or something, where she was like holding a black baby, and David Lammy gave the opinion that it was very much like a colonial white Jesus saviour of the black African kind of thing. So obviously he raised that as an issue, that Tina Daheley goes out there and tries to be, obviously doing what she's told from a BBC perspective, but David Lammy is shouting at the messenger, who's in this case is Tina, just doing what she's told to look concerned and charitable, try and raise money for third world countries that might need it if they can't quite help themselves as much as they should be. But anyway, you get the gist of it. That's what David Lammy is critical of: a white girl going to Africa holding black babies in some sort of Mother Teresa-esque image. And then this one popped up, which got my eye as well, because this is very much a case of an idiot. So we're going to look at an idiot. Now, this isn't specifically aimed at David Lammy. This is aimed at anyone, whether you're walking into a new club for the first time and it's a boxing club and you don't know how to tie up your hands, your gloves, your mitts, or you're going into a rowing club and you don't know what side of the boat to get on, or you're going into a knitting club and you don't know how to do your funny knitting rules, techniques. But this is in the Houses of Parliament as an elected MP who's been put there by the people of Tottenham, or the voters, should we say, of Tottenham, to represent Tottenham's interest. I believe it's Tottenham. And this is a classic case of someone who's entered into this building, dare I say this white man's building, I think that's fair to say, as a black man trying to raise black issues. Now, it seems that to me that David Lammy takes these very seriously, almost gets himself a bit emotionally charged when it comes to the white-black kind of discrimination and racism and God knows what else you want to call it. And he gets rather heated, and he forgets kind of protocol. He forgets his persona. He forgets how to act in a certain way within this arena, particularly here. When you think about it, this is the red lines that you do not cross, because they're 2 sword widths a length. If you're at this side of the house, you do not cross over to this side of the house, because obviously that could be seen as an attempt to assault someone on the opposite party. This house is very much a party of discussion, and you leave your swords outside, or you definitely don't bring any violence into the hall. It's a place of debate on a civilized basis, not on a barbaric basis where the biggest fist on the head wins. So David Lammy's in this room. He's trying to raise some points, and he makes an idiot of himself. So let's look at how David Lammy, a very privileged in terms of his education and his opportunities in life, he's had the best of educations. He went to America on a scholarship. I think it was even Harvard or something like that. And he studied there for his degree. And he is actually in the training to become a barrister in England. So that's someone who goes to court and represents a party and can speak to the judge formally on behalf of those parties. And for some reason, whatever it is, he decided to go into politics. And here he is. acting like someone who doesn't quite know what he's supposed to be doing.
Home Secretary, I've asked you to make a statement on the House today on the operation of the Windrush scheme. Your department's treatment of the Windrush generation has been nothing less than a national scandal. In November, we learned that at least 164 Windrush citizens were wrongly removed, detained or stopped at the border by our own government. 11 of those who were wrongly deported have died. You've announced 3 more today. Every single one of these cases is a shocking indictment of your government's pandering to a far-right, racism, sham immigration targets and a dog whistle of the right-wing press. You've spoken about being a second...
Order. I have the highest regard for the right honourable gentleman. An occasional descent into the use of the word "your" by accident is one thing, but a calculated repetition of the word "your" is not appropriate because debate is conducted through the third person. I haven't made any statement. I'm not responsible for any scandal.
Yeah, I. So he's referring it to the I, the singular. But as we've well studied with Carl Lentz, that you is a very powerful word because it's used in context of individuals in the legal sense. It's also used as context of the persons that you're looking for. So this is what he's saying. We argue here in third persons. You know, there is no one in this hall. There is no one in this hall. We are all here acting in a particular role and a certain persona that allows us to be in this hall, and that persona is that of you're representing your constituents. Yeah, so you're there as many, even though you're one David Lammy. You're there representing all the people who voted for you and all the people who didn't vote for you in Tottenham. So that's basically what I'm getting across here, and also you're being a very accusative, right? So you're accusing the individual. Which actually translates to the things, but in this case, the man. So this is why Bercow is he's interrupted David Lammy in his flow, just to say, whoa, we can't start accusing people in this arena, because when you start accusing people individually for, time gone by decisions of people who've occupied an office, position within the government, you can't then suddenly say, well, this guy here right in front of me today is responsible for all the things that have come before him. That's basically what David Lammy's saying. So he's like, whoa, we've got to stop using this word "your." You need to change your tone, and we argue and debate through the third person, because we are not going to start accusing anyone in this house, because we're not going to dishonour anyone by saying that you yourself have done this to some other people, and have caused deaths of people. You know, because you're essentially accusing him of killing people by negligence.
And I sort of mildly resent any suggestion to the contrary. Well, not that one, anyways. The Honourable Lady rightly chunters from the sedentary position. But I don't want to interrupt the flow of the Right Honourable Gentleman's eloquence, or for that matter, the eloquence of his flow, any further. Mr. David Lammy.
You're quite right, Mr. Speaker. Every single one of these cases is a shocking indictment of this government's pandering to a far-right racism, sham immigration targets, and a dog whistle of the right-wing press. The Home Secretary has spoken about being a second-generation...
See, he had to take a breath there and just pause, and he goes, you, instead of saying you, he says, oh, yeah, the Home Secretary. That's right. Now, what is the Home Secretary? Obviously, it's a person of the office of the government, whoever's in government at the time. So yeah, he's had to physically change his mind into saying, because he's obviously being reprimanded in a way about, hey, this is how we speak in this place.
Migrant himself. On taking this job, he promised to do whatever it takes.
She's saying he promised
to put this wrong right.
It should be my right honourable friend. The Home Secretary promised.
We are now 10 months on from when this scandal broke. Not a penny has been paid out to any Windrush victim in a compensation scheme. The independent Windrush Lessons Review has not yet reported. I say to you, Home Secretary, before the review is even complete, why are you deporting people? We hear about deportation flights to Jamaica this week, when you have detained up to 50 black British residents and given them open window removal notice. Why are you deporting them, given that this review is not reported and there's been no compensation?
Now, you hear in the background there people are going, you. He said, you. Why is the Home Secretary deporting people? Why does the Home Secretary believe it is appropriate to deport these people? in light of the Windrush scandal. So this is why he's using the wrong terminology.
How can you be confident
He's just done it again. How can the Home Secretary be confident?
that you're not making the same mistakes? Movement for Justice is working with 26 of those who risk removal. 13 first came to the UK as children. 9 came under the age of 10. 11 people have indefinite leave to remain. Another has a British passport. 36 British children will have their passports taken away by this charter flight. Or have their parents, taken away by this charter flight. Once enslaved, then colonised, and now repatriated.
Oh my word, he went there. He went there with the slavery thing.
Why do you say that these children should live without their parents? Why do you say that the families of black...
Again, it's going back to why do you say? Why does the Home Secretary maintain the position that blah 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 blah?
British people who have been killed by your department's incompetence...
Look, now he's gone straight up with an accusation of killing by your department.
That this is acceptable. That is what happens. We are now 20 years on from the Macpherson Review, which found institutional racism in this country. I asked the Home Secretary, why is it that still in this country, black lives matter less?
Yeah. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So here we are. We got the Home Secretary. Is it Sajid Javid, who apparently is who's been pointed out by David Lammy as being an immigrant himself. And now he's got a rise and answer like, whoa, man, I didn't do any of that stuff. What are you talking about?
Mr. Speaker, I mean, first of all, thank the honourable gentleman just to, at least he's raised this important issue of
So even though he's basically been personally attacked, he's doing the honourable thing. He's saying, look, thank you very much for talking to me like a piece of shit. Thank you very much. Good points raised.
Windrush, and it's good at any time when we can update the House in many different ways. But I have to, Mr. Speaker, take issue with the tone of the right honourable gentleman. I mean, he does himself no good service, a huge disservice in the way that he speaks and the tone that he has used to suggest there's even an ounce of racism in this House, and to ignore the facts. Mr. Speaker, he chooses to ignore. He could have made this into an honourable debate by looking at the actual issues and thinking about how we can help people that have been affected. He chooses to ignore that the Windrush, members of the Windrush generation that have been affected in a wrong way, as I have recognised, as many ministers have recognised in this black box. It began under previous governments, continued under successive governments, including the government that he was part of.
Yeah, exactly. All right, anyway, so the rest of the video is about Sajid Javid just defending him. Well, not defending himself, just saying, what are you talking about? You know, this is basically an institutionalized problem, as was pointed out by that review that David Lammy mentioned. So yeah, you know, don't pin all your blame on me, buddy. You know, get your facts straight. Don't blame it all on me. It's a government problem. It's a policy problem. It's an institutional problem, and you're quite right to point it out. But hey, buddy, did I shit on your front lawn? No, give me a break. And that's basically what I want to do. So it's quite interesting to see how someone who is part, or even a member of Parliament, or you know, your big Congress, I suppose, in America, a member of the Parliament tries to address and raise an important issue, but in his passion, in his emotion, and allows him to allows it to, you know, run away with him, and he ends up making the point become dismissed. You know, it's like, yeah, well, lovely point, mate, but you delivered it in such an idiotic way, in a way that isn't proper for this particular arena, and therefore, you know, more I can deflect the issue back on you more individually as someone who's acting like an idiot in this particular courtroom. And there we are, David Lammy, not so impressed anymore.